We play and call it work.
Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and welcome to another episode of Lore Hunter, the show where I hunt for the answers to your lore questions. I am not a lore master, I hunt for it. And in this case, I had to do a bunch of research to understand certain aspects of this and combine it with knowledge which I already had as well. The question comes from Mark Horsfall. Why does the 8-pointed star of chaos undivided, it's actually just chaos, have 8 points when there's 4 chaos gods? Were there once more? Assuming Malal or Malice was replaced by Zuvicin and Nechato, that's 2 unaccounted for. Are there any lesser entities in the warp that could once have been full-on gods? Or does it have 8 points because it sounds cool? I think in all honesty it's the latter, but not something I've seen people bring up. It's actually not the latter, it's also not the former. The real answer is kind of boring in that the chaos symbol is not unique to Games Workshop. In fact, it didn't take very long to find this out actually. I found a wiki article talking about the chaos star, the symbol, and so I'll just read one little part from here. The symbol of chaos, which is the 8-pointed star, originates from Michael Moorcock's Eternal Champion stories and its dichotomy of law and chaos. In them, the symbol of chaos comprises 8 arrows in a radial pattern. In contrast, the symbol of law is a single upright arrow. It's interesting that was not incorporated. So this got incorporated into a bunch of different fantasy, actually, one being Games Workshop. So the easy answer to your question, which I could just finish right now, is just saying it is actually a typical chaos symbol. It's actually used in like real life chaos worshippers, people who believe that kind of thing to be true. And that's it. That's really all there is to it. So let's get to something more interesting then. Let's talk about these lesser gods that you're talking about. So we have Malal or Malice, and we got Zuvicin and Nechato. Now, I had to do some digging because I had never heard of Zuvicin and Nechato or Nechato before, and I wasn't able to find anything on Nechato. No Google search anywhere, and any combination revealed who on earth that is. So if somebody in the comments is able to point out who that is, that would be wonderful. Zuvicin, on the other hand, was somebody that was new, I didn't recognize. And he's actually from Warhammer Fantasy 1st Edition. It's the only time we hear about him. And he is called the Undoer, the Chaos God of Destruction. Now, if you're familiar with Malice or Malal, he's the Chaos God of Anarchy. There's a big difference here because Zuvicin's job is to frustrate people's plans, whereas Malice's job is to destroy chaos. There's a difference between those two. Zuvicin just liked destruction for the sake of destruction. This is different than Khorne, who likes bloodshed, he loves warfare, and still has some sort of sense of honor to all that. Zuvicin, not like that at all. Just likes to mess up your plans. He likes to mess up plans so much that he might even mess up his own plans because he enjoys messing up plans so much. So if you have plans, then make sure you pray to the opposing god, which is, I don't know, Tzeentch, I guess. Tzeentch would be the opposite because Tzeentch is all about the plans and keeping plans and making plans work. In fact, Tzeentch's arch enemy is not Khorne, it's Zuvicin from all senses of the word. But we haven't really heard from Zuvicin since Warhammer Fantasy 1st Edition. Then we have Malal, or Malice, as he was renamed to, apparently because of some legal problems or some copyright issues. I'm not quite sure exactly what it was, but they did rename him. He is the Chaos God of Anarchy or Terror. You see him in Chaos Space Marine 3rd Edition. You see him in 1st Edition Warhammer Fantasy as well, so he's both in 40k and the Warhammer Fantasy universe. Kind of disappeared, hasn't really been around, probably because they've kind of developed the 4 main Chaos Gods and they're sticking with that, although they do have the Great Horned Rat for the Skavens, so they are open, obviously, to new types of Chaos Gods. So Malice is anti-chaos. He believes in the destruction of chaos, which is very contradictory given that he is also chaos. And so he'll try to destroy himself too, I guess, if he could. He's all about just destroying chaos, anti-chaos. You think that would make him a good guy, but he's still a chaos god, so he'll destroy anything in order to destroy chaos. And so it doesn't make sense, and he's one of the only chaos gods that kind of makes sense because he doesn't actually make sense. All the other ones are called chaos gods, but let's face it, they're more gods of order than they care to admit. They just have a different sense of order. For example, Nurgle, I would say, has Nurgle and Tzeentch actually both have very good ideas of what order is. if you read the novel Plague Garden, where they actually go into the realm of chaos, into the realm of Nurgle, you find that he doesn't want to destroy everything and make everything bad. He wants to switch it over to his idea of perfection, which of course to us is disgusting, disease-filled, and an awful hell with no hope. He actually loves despair. Despair is his favorite thing. But there's still an order to it, and a strict order to it, in fact. Tzeentch, holy cow, talk about order. This god's got plans within plans within plans. His thumb has plans that are making plans for other plans that his foot is currently planning on trying to get around. It's just all about plans, and you can't have plans without order. You just can't. Khorne, you know, he's probably more simple-minded. Don't tell him I said that. But he just likes bloodshed, you know. Once again, he doesn't care who dies. It could be his followers, it could be somebody else's followers. So that's maybe a little more true chaos. It's just like, whatever, as long as it's killing, I'm all good with that. And of course, we have Slaanesh, who's more about depravity, so you can't really bring an order to that. It's just more like, just take everything to the extreme. So that's kind of, so you almost, if you look at the 4 chaos gods, now that I say it out loud, Nurgle and Tzeentch seem opposed to Khorne and Slaanesh, which of course they are, because the Nurgle and Tzeentch like order, and Khorne and Slaanesh are kind of whatever. Just as long as we get what we want, we don't care how it all works out in the end. Whereas Tzeentch is like, no, it has to be this way. And Nurgle's like, no, it has to be this way, exactly. So it's kind of interesting that way. We also have some other interesting minor chaos god, Ansel Morkuk and Ferez Etar, which were apparently anagrams to some of the early writers and authors, like Brian Ansell, for example. And so there's really nothing written about them except that they're there. So we know there can be lesser chaos gods. In 40K, there's definitely precedent for it. And in Age of Sigmar, there is certainly precedent to having more chaos gods. We've got the Great Horned Rat of the Skaven, who's not totally been recognized in the chaos pantheon, but is still a chaos god. We've got Archaon, who is trying to become a chaos god. He doesn't just want to be a demon prince, like the highest level demon. He wants to be another chaos god. So Age of Sigmar, you technically can have more. But the 8-pointed star really has nothing to do with that. In 40K, it's just a symbol. In Age of Sigmar, they actually went to the extreme and made the 8 winds of magic from it, all stemming from chaos. And there you have it. That is why there is an 8-pointed star. So thank you for your question, Mark. And if you want your question answered, make sure you leave it in the comments below. Thumb up the questions that you'd like to see answered, and we'll see you in the next Lore Hunter video. Happy wargaming.